And what's funny is that when you get into a leadership creative role, you will learn that you actually are taking on a lot of management. If you just want to make stuff, just be content with the graphic designer role, because that's literally, you just get to make stuff.
Welcome back to the Church Circle podcast, and we are having some amazing guests this season. I feel like every season we kind of get into new realms of conversations, and this time we're doing a first as well, which is having more than two people on the podcast. And who better to have with us than the power couple, the creative power couple that is Angel and Kari Acevedo. And you may have heard of them before. You may have seen their work, whether it's God is a Designer, whether it's VU Church, whether it's creative consultancy, all of that stuff. I mean, you guys are just an absolute power couple. And I mean, even just look at the background right now with where you guys are. It's like you could just tell you guys are creative souls. So very excited to have you here. Very excited to have you with us. Thank you for carving out time, especially with a little one, for both of you to be here. I know it's a big commitment, so thank you. For people who don't know who you are, just explain a little bit about your story. And Angel, we can start with you. Your story and just about how you guys met and where you are now.
Yeah. Well, Reuben, thank you so much for having us here. We're excited to be a part of this. We actually host our own little podcast as well. And it's because of our 2-year-old, it's been a bit of a hiatus. So we're just kind of getting back to the groove of things, but really excited to be here. I'm really grateful that you've given us an opportunity just to chat. And we're able to break ground with dual people in two screens, so I'm sure it's going to work out. And our background is a little bit like our brains, you know what I mean? All over the place. So
I love it. Would you describe it as maximalist? Was that what you describe it as? I love that. Yeah.
I feel like a little brutalist and a little bit of maximalist, and it's just, it's a little explosion. But thanks again. Like Reuben mentioned, my name is Angel Acevedo. This is Kari Acevedo, my incredible wife. And we're both from Puerto Rico, which is a little island in the Caribbean. And we met about, I want to say 2012. 13 years? What's the math?
13, 14 years
13,
ago?
yeah.
13 years ago. And we actually met through a group of friends that are in the creative space. Kari and I both attended the same art school, even though I graduated a few years before her. It's called the Art Institute. Rest in peace, since it's shut down. And we just met through mutual people. And it's interesting because our journeys, we're just kind of going through our own different walks of faith at that time, and Kari was going through hers and I was going through mine. And I feel like she can tell you a little bit, but her friends kind of told her about me, and her friends told me about her, and we just we wanted to get to know each other. We kind of found each other interesting, right? And Kari likes to say that I was a genius, in that people were just saying how great I was, and that's kind of like why.
That is true.
Is that right?
That's true.
You want to tell them about that, babe?
Yeah, that's all I heard, that he was awesome. And then he had like this really great apartment in the city and whatever. He was like, cool. And I was like, who is this guy?
I do want to say, I did have a cool apartment in downtown Miami. At that time, I mean, I don't know how it is over there in the UK, but right now here in the US, the housing market is insane. What I was paying for that apartment, we were just talking about it. It was insane. It was so cheap. And now in retrospect, that apartment is worth like 3x, the price. But anyway,
we loved it. Yeah, so that's how we met. And then we started dating. And through that journey of dating, we found out how similar our upbringings were. So we were both born in Puerto Rico, like he said. We were both raised in church in the same kind of denomination. So even the way our families operated when we were young was very similar. And then we had this love for art, specifically graphic design. And so, it's really special how there's so many similarities, but it really took us living in Miami and our parents moving away from Puerto Rico.
Right.
And this whole thing just chasing better opportunities for, their families, for us to find ourselves. And so that's where we're at. So we've been together since we got married. We had a baby 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we are in that kind of toddler stage at the moment, which is very fun.
Yeah. I do one thing to note is, and not to get ahead, because I know we may talk about it a little bit later, but Kari was an answered prayer for me. And the fact that the backgrounds that we have are so similar, I've always wanted to marry someone that was similar to me and that we grew up in the same way and had the same values. And the fact that all the millions of people here in Miami, I found someone that just kind of ticked all the boxes was an absolute miracle. And the fact that she has a dual major. I'm like mayor. My accent, guys. Major. She had a dual major. She's brilliant, and then she got into design as well. So which was awesome. So I just want to give God the glory for that, which is just a great blessing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can already tell there's so much the word interwoven. Like I see so much interwovenness, and we can get more into that later on, like how that affects, your work in ministry, but also your work just in general in the creative industry. Like it feels like there's a very God ordained intertwining of stuff that just has started from how you guys met. And I love that. So yeah, I think that bleeds into everything, right? Like your story, one about how you guys started and just on your own journeys, but then how you guys came together, it kind of really bleeds into your story. And that's clear in your creative identities. I think a lot of people know you both online. If they haven't seen a God is a designer hat, they've seen Kari's work online. Like you guys are pretty influential, not just in the Christian creative space, but in the creative industry in general. Okay. And so, yeah, I think I'm really interested to kind of pick that apart and start to get into that about kind of how you guys operate and more, especially as you are now a young family as well. So what is let's zoom right out. What does a normal week look like for you guys? What is a normal, you're in your new rhythms with a toddler. What does it look like for you as a normal week as the Acevedos?
Well, it's Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday.
So we're just getting started with a new week. But we get up, usually awoken by our son kicking the bed or asking for us to turn on the TV.
Don't judge us.
So he is currently half sleeping in his room, half sleeping in our bed. And so if you are a parent out there, you know how precious sleep is. And so we do whatever we can to get some sleep. And so that's how we get woken up. We get ready for school, and then we drop him off, and then we kick off our work day.
Yeah.
And so we work about 6 to 7 hours a day. We try to limit and stay within the 6 hours because we don't want our son he's already in school for 6 hours, and he's little. So that's where we're at right now. We don't even work a full 40-hour week. If there is work that needs to be done, we'll carve the time outside of our evenings to do it. And so that's even sometimes a tension point of how much we even do that and how much we're even capable of doing that in just the season that we're in. But basically we work about 6 hours, and then we try to keep a rhythm, more or less, throughout the day and try to focus on certain things. We each have our hands in different projects and different things. And so sometimes even some of the tensions that we navigate are jumping from one thing to the next thing, and, and just helping clients sometimes navigate problems and things that come up along the work week. But we work Monday through Friday, and then we can talk more about what that looks like in terms of my day. And then, we take some time off, but I think we work 40 minutes?
Yeah. Minus 2-3 hours. Yeah. About 32 hours maybe.
And we work from home.
That's amazing.
So this is actually our office, and it's set up at home. So that's another sometimes little thing that it can get a little monotonous, being in the same space and stuff like that. Because you live and work from the same place, and then you live and work. It's a lot of things.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Reuben, as you know, with the 2-year-old, well, you have 2 now, right? So, but with a 2-year-old, I feel like it changes month to month almost.
Sure. Yeah.
Sometimes we get a little bit more, sometimes we get a little bit, and it depends on his temperament, or I would like to say his brain development, how he's doing, and what his brain is developing this week, So it's very flexible and fluid, which was very difficult. I'm sure for you it was as well. The transition from 0 babies to 1, it was a challenge. Even though we took some time off, I want to say 6 months, maybe, right? Or I think we took 3 to 6 months.
I think I took 3.
Yeah. Even I still find that around 2-3, I need to unwind, right? Yeah. I need to start already. Mm-hmm. I don't, when you're cranking, And when you're like making stuff, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge. So
Yeah.
to your viewers that do not have children, I would like to say,
get ready.
get ready. No, I will say that, it's interesting because it's not until you're on this side that you really understand the value of your time. And I remember even my business coach and other mentors telling me, hey, before we had kids, when it was just her and I, hey, do things now, because when kids come, it's going to be a lot more challenging. And I'm there on the couch, on the PlayStation or whatever, and I'm like living my life. And now it's like, now it's a lot. It's doable, but it's definitely, time is a lot more valuable.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you. And I'm glad you explained that. I was like, has it changed? But yeah, I feel like it's inevitable it's going to change. I'm glad you guys took time off. But I think even then, once you've taken time off, it's like getting back into, like, you get itchy, don't you? I feel like as a creative, it's like the taking the time off, you get itchy, but it's good for you. And then you get back into it and you're like, I've got all this energy. It's like kind of like a toddler, you got all this energy, but then not enough like ways to outlet that energy because you haven't got enough time or resources, or you're tired. And so it is definitely a journey. And I think it's a really important conversation. I don't know if this conversation happens enough, because our creative lives, our creative careers are longer spent on average with children than they are spent without children, right? Like with a family. Like, let's say in your 20s is when you're building your career as maybe a solo creative, but then you get married, and then towards the end of your 20s, let's just say it's an average life, you start to have children. But then it's your 30s, your 40s, and your 50s of your working career that you have to now balance with a family. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm glad we're on the same journey. It's definitely one of those ones where like you said, like every week, every month, it's like, what rhythm are we in right now? I mean, for us, Elijah had his like first big virus. And so it's like, how do you deal with throw up, and how do you deal with working and everyone's sick and like all that stuff? It's like, you just take each day as it comes, and you just try and and then that changes your expectation of work and how you create, because it's now, some days you're not going to get everything you want to get done. And this is why, Kari, I think you're a really good voice in this, because you've had a lot of concepts around this idea. I know you've talked about make day before, and we'll get into that. And I think this is a really healthy conversation to be having, especially around this time of life. So I want to get really kind of stuck in with this. And we've kind of allotted a little bit more time to, if you're the listener. Normally our episodes are kind of like 30 to 40 minutes. This will be probably closer to an hour. This is just so we have a lot of time to, with three people, want to give everyone a chance to share their story. Okay, so Kari, you've lived in a fast-paced environment, and I don't know if we talked much about this, but obviously you were at VU as was it creative director? Was that your role? Art director, creative director?
Creative director.
Creative director. And what did you learn about leading creatives at that time? And what's kind of your role there now?
I learned a lot. So, well, my role now is that I'm an art director. And so when I got pregnant in 2022, I decided to step off my full-time job. And so the creative director title at VU is a director role where you oversee a department of people. And so when I stepped off my full-time job, my title became art director, because I still do a lot of creative direction and leading, but I don't oversee the department. I'm not there on the day-to-day. But just leading people. It was a multifaceted experience that, to be honest, I don't think I fully anticipated or knew what it would look like when I started that journey. I think, us creatives, like graphic designers, let me speak for graphic designers, because we kind of have like a trajectory, and creative director is like the end, right? Sure. It's like, I made it, in terms of like role, and like job descriptions. And so it was really appealing to me for that reason, but also because I really thought, I was like, now I'm going to get to do all of this amazing work, And what's funny is that when you get into a leadership creative role, you will learn that you actually are taking on a lot of management. And so you don't actually always get to do a lot of the creative work. And so that's a tension that you sort of navigate. Certainly, you get to speak into the direction and how we're going to approach this and how we're going to do it, and what it's going to look like visually. And that's very fun. But then you kind of step away because, there's a meeting you got to attend, and you got to make decisions on this other events. And, and so there's planning and management along the way. And so that was something that I learned as I was doing it. And it was hard for me. Because I love to, as much as I can lead, I'm good at it and I find joy in it. The thing that I love to do is to make stuff, and so that was a tension point that I had to navigate, which is also one of the reasons why I instituted the Make Day at VU, was for my own sake to not be in meetings every day and to just have this one day where I could be with the team and kind of make stuff. And then I just learned, working with people, it's messy. People have their own journeys. Everybody has a different skill set that you have to navigate. People respond to things differently, to challenges, to feedback differently. And so sometimes as the leader, not only do you need to solve the problem, the creative problem, but then sometimes you're managing a person that may be stuck or may not know how to get there. And so all of that to me was like new. It was stuff that I just did not expect to do when, the opportunity came, that I learned along the way. Those were some of my big learnings. So they were really not even about the creative work. It was all about working with people in collaboration, in team, and how to steward that in the best way possible so that everybody's having fun and then you're creating really good stuff, And so that was my journey as the creative director.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think this is all just helpful context because we see your faces on so many different things. You guys are working on different stuff. So to kind of know a bit of the background is really helpful. Would you say you prefer, and I don't want you to get in trouble for saying this, but would you say you prefer being an art director or a creative director? Like you said about the end goal of a graphic designer, do you think the end goal should be a creative director or do you think it should be an art director?
Well, I think it depends on the person's personality and their skill set. Because when it comes to leadership, you're leading from your personality, right? And you're leading from the way that you are. And I think a lot of leadership is also in how you steward yourself. Like you gotta be good at like managing things, managing time, spreadsheets and things like that. And so if that's not a skill set that you have, I don't know if the creative director or any director role is great for you. If you just want to make stuff, just be content with the graphic designer role because that's literally, you just get to make stuff. Now, I think for me, what I've learned having all of these different roles is that I operate at my best when I am the creative director, because what I've learned along the way for me is that I've got limits in my ability to create as a graphic designer. And when I work with other people, I fill all of my gaps. And so I can have an idea. And then when I build a diverse team of people with graphic designers, and there might be variations in that, maybe illustrators, maybe some are better at like editorial design, with video people and photographers, etc., then I can actually get to a vision that's much larger than what I can do as a graphic designer. And that's very thrilling for me. I'm really good at that. And so I just learned that, life comes with tension, right? Everything in life has a tension. Everything has like a bright side and a dark side. And I think what I've learned in the creative director role is that some of the dark side, some of the things that bog me down, it's just part of the work of just working with people. Because every area of life you work with people. And so, yes, the focus and the thing that I want to bring most attention to is like making things. How can we do that? How can we get there quicker? And I think that's a lot of my focus and the things that you've seen with my Make Day or my productivity or finding ways of like being more efficient is literally how do we get this group of 10 people to just like march on in the same direction and then just do this really cool thing. So yeah, that's what's been my journey. And I think that's what the role that best fits me.
Yeah. I love that you're discovering that, like, I think it's okay to be between, like you said, like if you know in your heart that it's just graphic design you want to do, then pursue just being a better graphic designer and see where that takes you in your career, as opposed to like aspiring for this thing that you think is the end goal. And it's actually, you get there and you're like, actually, this is not what I want to do because I don't know. I'm not aware of what I want to do myself. Angel, for you, you're obviously a little bit more on the, let's say the outside of the church world, but there's so many cool things you're doing that kind of, again, is the intertwining that brings those things together. I think the biggest thing that people will probably know you for is God is a Designer, the brand. Kind of just walk us through that, set some context for like how that got started, obviously it's a mission and it's a brand at the same time. So like what are the goals of that? And yeah, how did it come about?
I love that. That's probably my favorite question about the brand. Before I get into it, I wanted to say regarding creative direction, which was interesting, is that when you look at the fathers and the mothers of the past, as far as the big titans of design and graphic designers, towards the end of their career, they consider themselves graphic designers. So you look at Saul Bass, Paul Rand, even Debbie Millman, and these that have achieved greatness, it comes back around. It's like, no, actually, you know what? Graphic design, that's what I do.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, for some reason, when we're in design school, it's like creative director. It's like the holy grail, right? But when you're up there, you're like, man, you don't do as much stuff as you think you were going to do, you know? So I just want to encourage the youths. It's like, yeah, definitely achieve for it if you want to, but I'm a lowly graphic designer and I love it. You know, that's what I like to do. And that's why the brand God is the Designer exists. It's like I made it specifically because I felt inadequate. I didn't feel that graphic design was anything meaningful. And this was early in my career where I want to say Gaiad started, I created, I think 2004, 5-ish is when it kind of first started. But I remember I was in church service and the pastor was preaching and, you know, it was great and the worship was going and stuff. And I remember getting this feeling of like, it's so cool that people in ministry, what they do is so close to God, right? It's so close to the divine, right? It's like a divine calling and all this. And then I thought that me as a graphic designer, what am I doing? You know, making logos and flyers, or at that time making little flyers and business cards or whatever. That doesn't necessarily change the world. Then I felt like the Lord reminded me of Genesis 1:1, where it says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he explains the whole creation story. But those first 5 words in the beginning, God created, to me really stuck out. And that's when I thought, I was like, man, if the first thing God did was create, that means he's a designer. I'm a graphic designer. I mean, God is a designer. So we're like, I say this in every time I say it, but it's like, God is like me, which is interesting to thought, as opposed to we're like him, right?
Yeah.
Especially early in your career. I don't know if you go through the Dunning-Kruger effect where you think you're like the greatest designer in the world or whatever. I was deep into that, right? Very self-centered, but it was really cool just to kind of get that revelation of like creativity exists as part of who we are. And it's inside every human being. And even in animals, like how they create things, how they make things, how they find solutions for it. And I find Gaiad, we call it Gaiad for short, but we find God as a designer as a tool to deliver that message. Of course, the God is a designer message is powerful on its own, right? But it exists to deposit reminders on people that you were created. There's a creator that is supreme and made all the things that exist. And not to be afraid of creativity, you know, that's in us all. I tell people even that are like in fields that aren't necessarily in the creative space, you know, creativity is about solving problems. It's in every one of us, you know, doctors that are finding solutions for their patients or whatever, that they're using their creativity to make those connections, you know? So, so that's why I feel like, the Lord gave me the opportunity to create this brand that has made its mark. I mean, I feel in a small way in the creative community, people resonate with it. People from all different walks of faith resonate with it, which I think is incredible. I remember someone was telling me, I have like these little polls that we do, you know, whenever someone makes a purchase, and because it's, you know, data is important, right? To kind of get feedback from the community and what they like. And one of the feedbacks were, you guys need to be more evangelistic, or you need to talk about Jesus more, or you need to, just, you know, not be ashamed or something like that. I'm like, the brand, we're not ashamed of who we are, and clear in the ethos of the brand, we clearly say where it's from. But I do think it's important to know my lane, and my lane is to deposit seeds into people and let God water those seeds, right?
Yeah.
My walk of faith on my personal side of things, I'm pretty blunt about the things that I believe and what I do. But the brand itself, it's a brand for the world. It's a brand for people to, I feel like, for them to connect with it. And, you know, I let God kind of just handle it from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see it as a conversation starter. You know, I think
100%.
you've got the aesthetic of it, and you've got the message, but the message isn't. Both of those things are reflective of the person, and they can wear it, and then that can then bring their side of what they believe. I think like the most effective form of evangelism is people saying like how God changed me, and like, but the conversation starter is, this is, oh, that's a cool t-shirt, and you're like, yeah, I love this brand, and this is what I believe, and God changed me because, you know. And I think sometimes it's just it too in your face, and it's like it doesn't actually start a conversation. It can almost put people's defenses up, and so for you to come in with that different angle, I think actually makes a big difference and a big impact. So, you know, that's not me knocking on people who do have more kind of like outright faith statements, but I think there's definitely a place for people who want to build that connection, like you said, and open the doors for conversation. And I've definitely seen that. Like I've seen people wear your stuff before, whether it's and it's like, that's really cool. Like I can relate to that person. I know that person. I feel like I've already got a connection with that person just based on an item of clothing they're wearing.
I love that. And you know, what's interesting is my business coach and mentor, Chris Doe, which maybe some of your audience may be familiar with.
Yep.
He's not necessarily in the faith, and he's got his own journey, but he's the first one that kind of supported the brand just because he thought it was such a great idea. Obviously, Helvetica left justified always works, you know, so you put anything left justified Helvetica and it looks really cool. But he's someone that has championed the brand. That's supported us. He invites us to a lot of the events. He gives the hat away. He connects us with people, and he has been the number one ambassador for the brand. And he's not even necessarily someone that follows Jesus yet, you know, at least not that I know of. We've had those conversations, but that's not something that he's done. And he gets questioned about it all the time, often, because he wears it in a lot of his videos and the videos in the future on YouTube, which is incredible. And that's not something that I take for granted or I take lightly. This is something that he has been generous enough to do and to wear, even though it may not be something that he necessarily, a faith that he kind of aligns with, or at least just yet, you know, so, which I think is awesome.
I love that. The sowing seeds, you know, I think that's like one of the best things that we can do as creatives as well, is just what we create has the potential to change someone's life, but it doesn't, like you said, like, even though you said like business cards and flyers and stuff, like sometimes even those small things have the potential to make those changes, but it's just sometimes it doesn't feel like it. But when you actually see, like you said, like the story of Chris, like it's only when you see it in motion, you're like, oh, I can see why like God's taking me on that journey. So yeah, it's really cool. I'm so glad we just spent some time there, because I think we've obviously seen both of you, but not kind of known the behind the scenes story necessarily. But I want to just get into some of the cool systems you guys have built and some of the things and wisdom you guys have gained. Kari, since we mentioned this before, should we just talk a little bit about make days, intentional weekly structures? Maybe you can break that down a little bit for us. This is definitely something I've been learning a lot of as well. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
So make days started back in maybe 2017, 2018. Angel and I, we ran a design studio, which, by the way, today is its 10th year anniversary.
10-year anniversary today.
I should have had like little streamers or something.
Yeah. We always forget it's in the calendar, but literally this morning Kari was like, hey,
it's funny because we launched a company, or we started whatever, incorporated LLC, whatever it was that you did.
Yeah.
In 2015. And we've kind of been in and out of it. So we've had some consistency, and then some years where we pulled away. And so it even feels like 10 years is like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Anyway, so Make Day started there. And so basically Angel and I, we launched this design agency. It was very boutique, very small here in Miami. And it basically just happened. Angel had a poor experience with a job.
Yeah.
So he left a job to get another one, and it lasted like 2 weeks, and it was not a good experience. And he just kind of had this sense of like he wanted to go off on his own. And so it was right before we got married. And so we had the conversation. We're like, let's do it. Like, let's try it. And then I think 6 to 8 months after, I joined him. And so literally we're newlyweds.
We're working together.
He had like 5 months, maybe less, 3 months into our marriage. And we're working together. And I was super green. I did not know, like, I probably graduated school 3-4 years before. And so I just had a few jobs, but I was still developing who I was as a designer, my voice, and just, I never worked in a full like agency. That's never the path that I took. I never found that appealing. So I didn't even know the inner workings of like how to even operate a studio. And so Angel had more experience. And so we just kind of latched onto what Angel knew. And then we started growing. And then we got to a point where it was like, okay, I need to design, but I need to invoice and I need to pitch and I have these revisions.
Yeah.
Like it was like you're just juggling so many different roles, where you're just starting out, and I needed to find a way to figure out a rhythm. And so Angel and I, we kind of fell into our roles. And so he took on a lot of the creative. And I took on a lot of like the operational stuff. So I would do a lot of the project management, what's like even the software, like selecting the software, selecting how we invoice and like all of that stuff. And so in that world, we just needed to figure out a rhythm that allowed us to be able to do all of these different roles, but keep some sanity while we were doing it. And so I'm a fan of medium.com. I don't know if it's like popular, but I go on there often and you find some really great articles. And so I read an article. It's called One Googler's Take on something. I forgot the rest of the name, but it was an employee who worked at Google and he had this issue with meetings. And so he gave this whole breakdown of like a weekly, like energy flow. And what he started implementing, he was basically saying like, you need time to create. And so I just took that thing and I ran with it and I implemented it, and everywhere I've been. So in our own agency and even at VU, I've implemented and I just teach it and I share with people because it really helped us create some structure and it helps us stay sane. And even at VU, it allowed the team to just like get a break from meetings. It's funny because, you know, we get hired for our design work and our creative ability, but then people just want us in meetings all day, or they're interrupting us, or they're giving us feedback. And it's like coming up to our desk. It's like, my guy, friend, like, I need uninterrupted time, you know? And so that's where it comes from. That's Make Day.
I think a lot of people who work in church, and like, I feel like Tuesdays are the classic meeting day, right? Like at church, like everything just, and you end up, you think you've got two meetings. You've got like the general staff meeting and maybe like your department meeting. And then the following 4 hours after that are just random meetings that keep happening. And I think the protecting your sanity is a real thing. Like, it's not even being dramatic. Sometimes it's like, no, you actually need to like find time and carve out time. And I think having something that's defined and has boundaries, I think is really important, because it kind of sets an expectation for your work week. And it kind of gives other people a message of like, hey, I'm giving time for us to have these meetings, and giving time for us to have, you know, get these things done. But I also need time to create. So let's find a way to balance those two things. I feel like as well, it was really, what's the word? You had great foresight to see that, implementing that into your life before you had a kid, because I feel like that's probably one of the things that's also kept you sane. Is even in my own life, I'm like, okay, what days can I get more work done, but maybe do less childcare? But now, what are the days I'm going to do more childcare and less work? And like having that structure has helped me as well. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and even in this season, like after becoming parents and then going back to working for ourselves, having flexibility in our schedule, flexibility and like an openness can have a negative effect. I know it's an appeal, right? Like I know a lot of like creative people are like, I'm going to go work for myself because I can do whatever I want. Well, yes, that is very true. And that's also like really overwhelming. Yeah. And so even in this season of like having that structure, like Angel wanted to have a conversation the other day about finances. And I'm like, okay, Monday, you know, like I don't even have to think about what I'm doing, you know, on the day, because I know Monday is the day to have financial, admin, operational, business conversations. If you come to me on Tuesday, I'm going to be like, no, because that's my Make Day, right. You know? If you want to talk about
even for me, I cannot. You know what's happened? You can't see it here, but we're in her desk here. My desk is in the back. And a lot of times I want to turn around and be like, hey, that thing or whatever. And she's making stuff and she's like, you know, we're not supposed to be talking about this stuff.
Yeah, you need one of those like limo partitions, you know, like separate the driver from the back, and you just wind that thing up.
You just close it or whatever. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. We're getting him on board.
We're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good segue into working together. Like you guys have been doing it for I guess over 10 years, but 10 years as a business. I've got two questions. One's about boundaries and rhythms and one's about rest. I feel like let's just blend them together. How do you do the working together? You share an office. How do you do that? Like my wife and I do work together, but I have my own space. And I'm not saying that we couldn't work in the same office, but that level of intensity, how do you balance that on a day-to-day? How do you find rest? How do you switch off on the weekends?
Yeah. I have a lot to say. If anybody wants to do it, I would recommend not to do it. I would recommend just to get an outside space. But I think Kari has been she's been really good at that, at creating structures and boundaries in our home. And I don't know how and why she implemented those things, or how she can probably talk a little bit about how that happened. But we're literally in the same room, and we realize that it's like we have to number one is take breaks often, and give each other the space to work on the things that we got to work on. I'm an interrupter. When I have somebody here, it's like I want to talk to them. That happens when I was at Spotify or Royal Caribbean. It doesn't matter. It's like I was walking around because I just like to talk to people to see what they're working on, and 50% of the time was that, 50% of the time was getting my work done. But now it's like we try to create sort of a system where like have a cadence, right? Of like we put our headphones on. If I know she's got her, I cannot talk to her, and I have my headphones on. She can't talk to me or whatever. Or if we need to ping each other, it's like we'll text each other, or even we're literally like right here, be like, oh, check this out, because I don't want to bother her, or she doesn't want to bother me, but this is something you can check out later. You know what I mean? So there are certain things that we do similar to that. And also now it's like something with Aben, and with our son, with the baby. He's 2, he's in daycare. So ever since he started daycare, now I was sharing with you, Reuben, that now like the unwinding process is something that she has sort of implemented as well. It's like around the 2 o'clock. So around the 2, 3 o'clock, it's like, okay, we got to already start sort of disconnecting and start winding down, because we got to pick up Aben when he comes here. We got to play, we got to have fun, and we got to, just spend time with him, So me as a dad and as a man, me as a selfish man, I want to say it has been a challenge, because it's like, I want to do the things that I want to do. I want to, if I'm making something, if I'm designing merch, like I'm working on the new drops and stuff, it's very hard, especially if I could just caught my groove at 12:30 and it's like going to be 1:30 2 p.m. It's very difficult, but I do think it's important, especially for your family, because after the Lord, it's your family. Nothing else, not even your church, not your work, nothing else. It's your family. So I've learned a lot that from her, where it's like, I need to prioritize the things that matter and have intentional time with my son, intentional time with her. I think her and I can do better with our relationship, in the sense of like, because our son just takes so much. It's like we have to fight for our time. You know what I mean? She was just telling me, I think it was on Friday, we need to go to the movies. Like while he's in daycare, we just need to go to the movies, because we can, it's something that we used to do a lot when we were dating and we didn't have a kid. Was like, we'll go to the movies. We have the foods that we like to get, the nachos and the ices or whatever. I mean, I'm like a kid, right? So I get candy. But it's our time, you know what I mean? So we gotta try to protect that time. Of course we can do better at it, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think he phrased it really well. I think intentionality is the word, right? In the season that we're in, it requires a great deal of intentionality to fit in the things that we want to do and the things that we're stewarding. So just literally having a child completely transformed our time. And so a lot of, our days have a lot of demand on them from different areas. And so if we're not careful about how we're stewarding all of that, it can just get really chaotic. It's already chaotic. So you're just kind of trying to mitigate the chaos a little bit, and so I think we have a lot of different things that require the best that we can give them. And in order to do that, we just need to be intentional with it. And then we just learn along the way, literally just doing it, how to work together. I think in the beginning, we've always been really good about like falling into our role. and understanding our strengths and our weaknesses. And we kind of just let each other fall into them. And we do a good job of respecting what that looks like and what the other person is asking for. So like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, when we first started our design studio, he had a lot more experience than I did. So he led creative and I was just chime in and I just took on ops, Now we're kind of doing our own things, because we have our own clients. And so he manages his own thing. I manage my own thing. And then we kind of come together for Gaiad and Made in House and other projects that we have. But we learn that way, just working together, and we know our strengths. Like, for example, you asked me about Make Day earlier. The weekly flow is not something that he's fully implemented into his week. It's something that I kind of force on him. I'm like, Angel, today is your admin day, okay? Today is your make day. You are going to make. Just because we have so much flexibility in our work hours specifically, that it's easy to slip. And so if you let yourself fully be led by what you feel like doing that day or what, because that can happen to us creatives, then you sometimes don't end up actually meeting the expectations that you committed to. And so, yeah, that's how we learn. And so at this point, we both know how we work. And so that's not really an issue. The thing now is like spending time together, like you said.
Yeah.
And like date nights and like, the time, literally we get like 2 hours a day sometimes, between putting the baby down and then he's up again, and so that can be hard to navigate sometimes, but we're in it and that, we're having fun doing it along the way.
I think it's important to have the system in place and to have, or at least some kind of structure in place, because when things are hard, when it's chaotic, or, when it hits the fan, it's like now you default to the systems, right? It's like you default back to, even when you don't know what's going on, or it's like whatever, you go back to the default settings, So it's super important, and I'm grateful. It's like I complain about, or I give her pushback on a lot of stuff. I don't know why. Most probably because I have like shiny object syndrome. It's like I want to do all the cool stuff, But as someone that's managing 2 different businesses, and for example, for God is a designer, I'm not just doing the merchandise, because we have, we're running lean now. And so now I'm doing customer service. I'm doing some marketing. I'm doing if an email pops up, right, from a customer, it just upends my day. It's like, oh, shoot, now I gotta like take care of this, but God is like, you can do that later. Focus on the collection that we're supposed to drop end of the year. You know what I mean? It's like those kinds of things. But I think it's important to have a little bit of both too. Be also flexible when I don't know, inspiration hits and you want to try something. It's a sort of a delicate balance when you're working together. It's like leaning on her strengths and leaning on my strengths, and kind of like find ways. Sometimes it's this way. Sometimes it's this way. So
yeah. I think it's a lot of it is what I'm learning is expectations, like having the expectation of, okay, I'm going to just set aside this time, and it's either going to go really well, or it's going to go really badly, right? Like, but at least I've got the time, and it's going to, and you build those systems in, like when you fall back. Like I think some of my most productive moments have been since Elijah's been born, but some of my most unproductive moments have been since Elijah's been born. And it's like when it's going good, it's going really good.
Yes.
And you feel in your creative flow and you're like, yeah, I got this parent thing down. And when it unravels, it really unravels. And you're like, I've done nothing today.
100%.
And that is just, the expectation of, okay, like you said, Kari, like, sometimes you're not just going to get everything done. And like, that's okay. Like and you said, Angel, like it's God first, family second, and then everything else afterwards. And like, I've had to really reset my expectation on that. I was like, okay, my family, the greatest creative project I will ever work on is creating a family. Yeah. And then everything else comes second to that. Right. And so like, that's one of the frames I have to keep resetting myself to. Like, I said this to Matthew. I think I said it offline. I don't know if it might have been on the podcast. I can't remember, but I was like, sometimes I get a little envious of seeing other creatives that are younger than me that are able to just pump out so much stuff. And I'm like, I wish I could do that. But then that's the frame. That's my framing of what I'm creating. I'm still creating a lot, but right now I'm creating a family and I've got children, and that's got its own entirely different set of resources and energy that you have to expend on that.
If I can chime in real quick, because I think it's important since you kind of hit it a little bit. I'm 44 now, and so I'm, as far as like creatives go, obviously there's people that are older than me that were before me, but I feel like I'm in the beginning stages of like the internet kind of thing of when design. Photoshop 6 is when I started, so I beat by all these like younger influencers by decade plus. But yeah, seeing their work and pumping out some good stuff, I'm like, wow, man, that's incredible. And it kind of definitely makes you feel some kind of way. Or like, am I getting left behind, or what's happening, and everything with AI and stuff. I think it's important to give yourself grace, right? And to understand that you're not in a race. You're not in a competition with other people. I'm reading this book, The Courage to be Disliked, which I have to finish. And the philosopher in the book talks about how we always see people as competition. We need to start seeing them as comrades. We need to start seeing people as people aligned to you. Yeah. They're doing different things. Everybody's in their own lane, So, and they may be crushing it, but you're crushing it in other ways. So I just think it's important to, even in our relationship and how we handle things, even in our businesses, is to give yourself grace, prioritize your mental health. That's something that I'm in a season right now where I have been dealing with some things, and you gotta take your time off. Something that Kari does often. I always feel unproductive. I feel like I didn't do everything I set out to do today, even though I made it on the list. And Kari often just reminds me, it's like, it's okay. Like, we have a baby, and we have 3 businesses that we're trying to run, or 2.5 businesses that we're trying to run. It's fine. You're not going to be as productive as you were. I remember in my 30s or late 20s, I was crushing it, but it's not. I'm just in a completely different season now, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, is giving yourself that permission that it's okay. Like, it's not that you're working any less hard. It's just you're doing it somewhere else. It's not like your brain's switched off. It's like you're just thinking about other things. It's not like you're being lazy. I think that sometimes that can be the thing of like, you connect what you've produced to how well you work, and you go like, I produced all this stuff and therefore I'm working at 100%. And it's like, you are working at 100% still. You just haven't produced as much stuff, but the fruit is somewhere else, right? Like what you've actually produced, the fruit is might be in a different place. So yeah, it's definitely, I feel like we're as families, we're on a very similar path right now of learning in this season.
100%.
What's a strength that each of you bring to the table when, and I know you said you work on your own independent projects, but sometimes you come together. What's a strength that each of you bring to the table?
For me, it's like my left brain, so there's different kinds of creatives, and I'm a creative that can hop between a Google Sheet and like a Photoshop file, like I'm really good with systems and like finding patterns, building efficiency, and then I can make something, so that's a strength of mine.
Yeah, I want to say I agree 100%. I think my strength, I think I'm tactical. I think I'm very tactical with design. And I feel like you give me a challenge, you give me something I need to make. And I know, not because I think I'm the greatest, but I know that I will crush it just because I know that I won't stop till we get it right, And I feel like I do the research that needs to be done, and I get the references that need to be found in order to get the project done. So I feel like from my end, it's not structure, it's more like tactical design, and which it's my strength and my weakness, right? Because I want to do design work, it's like I get lost in the weeds of that as opposed to like running the business or running God as a designer. What was it that Crystal said? Instead of working on the business,
it's a book. Instead of working in your business,
working on
the business.
Right? Is that right?
On the business.
On the business, right? Yeah. It's like I'm working in the business and making the stuff instead of working on the big picture stuff. And man, I'm like, I don't know, 20 years in. I started in 2001. Really, I want to say 7 to 10 years doing good work, right? Because in the first decade plus, it was like, we'll be honest, it's like terrible work, right? But like doing design work or doing in the creative space, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning to prioritize what needs to be prioritized and to put things in a pocket for later. Like, just because I got a cool idea now doesn't mean I need to do it right now. You know what I mean? I'm still learning how to do that.
I feel like a visual of how you both work and maybe your strengths is like what your desktop looks like. Like so like my desktop right now is very unorganized. I have folders upon folders. I have to keep like zooming out to make the folders smaller and smaller just to give me some screen real estate. Who's the messy one? Who's the one that's got the folders?
100%.
And who's the one that's like, who has the most tabs open on like Chrome?
Probably him, because he uses. You see this monitor behind me?
Yeah. I hold on, move over.
It's like his extension.
See, I have my laptop and then the monitor. Yeah.
But this big monitor, he breaks it into 4 different like spaces. And so then he'll have like Spotify, YouTube, a bunch of links, and something random down. Like ChatGPT or something.
My Finder. Oh yeah, ChatGPT. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
You know.
So definitely him.
Yeah. And I want to say my desktop. You don't ever need to clean your desktop. All you got to do is make a folder called desktop and just dump it in there. My desktop folder, Reuben, is like...
It needs me in.
It's like a terabyte, dude. It's like... Yeah, it needs guided. It's like...
Yeah, we're on the same page.
When you take screenshots, like sometimes you take screenshots or whatever. Oh, I got to... Dude, I have just like a whole folder of screenshots I just need to delete, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Kari's is nice and...
It's the equivalent of like just sweeping everything under the bed, you know, and you're like, your mum says like someone's coming around and you just sweep everything under the bed to tidy
in the
your
closet.
room.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I used to use like the 11-hour flight from the UK to California. That was my file organization time because there was no like Wi-Fi, right? So I'd get my laptop, put my hard drive in, and I would just like, I'd save up a year's worth of organizing of like files. Like we're talking there, like terabytes as well. And I would just sit there for 11 hours. Like I'd have the map on to see where I was. I'd have the window and I'd just crank it and I would just get it all done, organized. So I basically waited to every flight, but now I can't really do that because I've got kids to look after on the flight. So I'm like, I can't organize. My files are just going to have to be dumped inside another folder until my laptop explodes and we start again.
Desktop 2024, 23, 2025.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man. Wow. That's a good idea though. That's definitely good.
There you go. You need to book a flight to Europe or something just to do file. You can write off as a business expense then.
Invite us.
All right.
We'll
do it. Are you tired of settling for subpar church media and spending hours searching for the perfect content? Remix Church Media is here to revolutionize your church's media game with their extensive library of high quality, fully customizable graphics, sermon bumpers, design toolkits, and motion loops. Say goodbye to the stress of creating media from scratch and hello to more time focusing on what matters most, sharing the gospel and impacting lives. Elevate your church's media and captivate your congregation like never before. Check out remixchurchmedia.com today. How do you manage creative differences between you two? Obviously, you work on separate projects, but there's obviously overlap and you have, I would say you have different aesthetic. I mean, there's obviously things you come together on, but you both have your own styles. So how do you manage those differences?
I think for me, I try to respect who's the lead on the project, like whose project it is and who has the final say. For example, with Gaia, sometimes I have opinions and I would love to see those things happen, and he doesn't necessarily agree, or he might agree, but he doesn't feel it, you know? And so then at the end of the day, I have to surrender that stuff because, you know, it's his project and he's the one that has, you know, makes it come to life. That's one way. And I think we do a good job of like respecting and valuing and honoring. I think we both, we want to hear from the other. And so we'll heavily consider what the other one is saying. Sometimes we'll workshop it together. We'll try to find something that we're both happy with. But I think at the end of the day, like if we need to surrender something, we go each other's way or whatever. And for me, the way that I kind of back off is just if he's the lead on the project, then he's making the call. And then if I'm the lead on the project, I'm going to make the final call if we fully disagree. You know,
and I feel like, I mean, I don't know about for you, but for me, the biggest challenge in that is that because we're married, right? We're married, we're in a relationship. But we're also colleagues, right? So we work together. Sometimes we work on the same project together, or sometimes we're looking for feedback. Yeah. Man, it's you got to be very intentional to separate both. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I know I can easily get upset at her if she's giving me feedback that I don't like, or that I don't think, or I may think it's like a personal attack or whatever, it's never that. She's just giving her opinion about something. So we have to be very intentional to kind of make sure we separate that, because ultimately we have to protect each other. We have to protect each other's hearts in that sense. And I find it interesting as like this concept of like, no, people don't like this word, but the concept of submission, like mutual submission, where it's like if there's a project that she's working on that, like she said, she's leading or whatever, there's something I'm like, okay, I'm going to lean on her on that. But if it's the other way, she'll lean on me on that. So it's like, and I feel like that's what marriage is, where it's like, depending on the situation, one of us takes the lead or the other takes the lead or whatever. But yeah, I feel like in those cases, we have to be very intentional to protect each other, and to protect the marriage. Really, the marriage is more important than our like working relationship,
Yeah. I guess the business. I mean, if you we look at that hierarchy: God, family, the business. It was all designed to support those things, right? So, like,
good.
The falling apart at the business is just not worth it because it puts the hierarchy out of place. That's really good. That's important. For you both, as you're I keep using this word intertwined. I'm sorry, but it cringes you guys out. But that interwovenness is obviously something that God's kind of put into you, how you guys operate. Where do you sense God's leading you both right now? Whether it's in business, whether it's in family, like you're obviously kind of doing this together. And then do you feel that God's leading you both into different business opportunities, not separate, but on your own journey? Or do you feel like you're just more like now you're kind of together? How do I word this? Do you find yourself just kind of like merging more together in God's calling? Or do you find yourself like kind of just still doing your things each and God's leading you in that direction?
I think for me, the way I've always seen it is like we're partners in this thing, and like his calling is part of my calling and my calling is part of his. And I think from the very beginning, without even having like serious conversations about it, I think we supported each other. And we always have. And so depending on the season that we're in and where we feel like God is leading us, we support each other. And so when it was like the season of me saying, hey, I'm going to step away from our full-time agency and I'm going to work for VU, he supported me in that journey every year that I was at VU, and whatever it meant, adjusting schedules or, asking more of him or whatever. When he told me that he wanted to leave his full-time job before we got married because he wanted to start an agency, I supported him, and so I just think like you keep saying this word intertwined, but I think God put us together. And so I think we serve each other's calling and each other's purpose. And so right now we're just committed to that. We're committed to the things that God placed inside of us and the things that God put in our hands. And so we want to do our best to see each other steward what God gave us and to actually see it come to fruition. So like this Gaiad project, like I support him, and that's different levels of support. That's like business partner support and then wife support, and you kind of navigate, back and forth in that because I understand that's a project that God deposited in his heart. And so as a wife, I have my place in that of like encouraging him and speaking life and reminding him that's like something he should work on. And then as a business partner, I'm like he was asking me earlier about hat order. I'm like, can I see a Google spreadsheet with the numbers? And he's like, yes,
just write it down. I was like, let's just do the math right here, and that's actually a good example because we did the Google sheet, the spreadsheet, and it gave a good breakdown. The thing is, as you know me, it's like I like to complicate things. I'm like, well, if we're going to do this Google sheet, let's just add everything. Because now, I don't know about how it's happening in the UK, but here in the US, tariffs are a big problem right now. And because I have vendors that are overseas, it's really affecting Gaiad like in a really big way that we've had to make some really tough decisions. So it's like I have this Google sheet she's asking, I'm like, oh my gosh, like every time, not every time. There's sometimes where, actually it is every time. Every time we want to start a project, okay, let's mood board it and let's put a deck together. And I'm like, why do we got to do a deck? Like, let's just, I don't know, go on Pinterest. Let's put like a quick thing and let's just get to designing. Yeah. But because she wants to stick to the right process, she wants to do a mood board and a deck or whatever. So her and I are very different in that sense, but I'm glad that I'm glad she pushes me to kind of get things right because I don't know, I would be all over the place. But.
Yeah, we're just meant to support each other.
Yeah, I did. You said the intertwine that I wanted to not take it like super spiritual, but It reminded me of the verse in Ecclesiastes. I kind of pulled it up real quick. In 4:12, Ecclesiastes 4:12 says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not easily broken. And I know that, especially everyone's been to a wedding where the pastor talks about, intertwining or whatever. But when you're doing three strands, it's you, your spouse, and then the Lord, right? And so it's like three together. And I feel like for us, that has been very instrumental in our end. And it's something that we try to of course, prioritize in our home, where every morning we're praying with our son, and we have like a little declaration that we stay with him before he goes to daycare and he's learning it or whatever. And at nighttime, we make sure we say the same prayers over with him, and kind of implementing that into like our everyday, you know what I mean? So I think that's the right word. The intertwined is the right word. And I mean, I'm glad that you see it. That makes us, it makes me feel like we're doing something correct, because we also believe that, marriages nowadays they're very difficult. People like to kind of eject real fast when it gets hard. But if you have that third strand, right? If you have the Lord in the middle of it, and like you're making decisions, by considering asking and inviting him into this process, I feel like, you're going to be definitely more stronger together,
Yeah. And I could see that like at the start of our conversation, before we even got into it. And I think a lot of people can see that just through what you guys are doing online, like just from whether it's Kari, like you're doing your like encouragement on socials, or it's your carousels, whether it's you're doing like calls with people. Like I know, like shout out to Charlotte at Soul Church, who's gone on calls with you before. Like she's got super encouraged and learn a lot from you as well. And then Angel, just what you're doing with Gaiad as well, and like all that. Like people are just generally can see you guys not just for what your brand and what you're producing, but also for the people you are. And even Matthew Creative, who I was on podcast with earlier, was like, hey, shout out to those guys, like send them my love. Like I love those guys. Yeah, I've been meaning to tell you to get them on the podcast at some point. And so like I think you guys make a huge impact, more than just what you're producing, but who you are as people. And I'm so glad we got to have this conversation, and I'm so glad that you guys exist in the church creative space, but also in the wider creative space as well, because I think having an example of people who work together and are building something together as a couple, as husband and wife, is really important. And there's something very sacred and encouraging about that. So thank you. Maybe just one final encouragement for those who are trying to lead, create, live intentionally, maybe just for people who are trying to create together as a couple, or start a business together. What would be your final encouragement?
I'm just going to speak from the season that I'm in. I think something that I'm learning right now is hard is not bad. That's been a phrase that has helped me in the last few years, because I am quick to reconsider things when they get hard. And it's funny because it's not in marriage, not like in family, but like in my work, or it's pretty much in my work. So like for example, sometimes with Vu, I'll be like, this is really hard. Like this is really requiring a lot more from me. And then especially when it pulls me from doing the creative work, then I'm like, I need to eject. Or like even a client, I was working with a client last week, and we had a little bit of an issue where we, how you have like the creative brief? We were on different pages. And so I'm like, we need to get on the same page ASAP. And then I was like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this with my time, So like, I'm really quick to like second guess whatever I'm doing if I get a little bit of tension. And I'm just learning that like, that's the life, like everything has tension. I spoke about it earlier. Everything has a good side or a bright side and a dark side. And you just need to navigate that stuff. And hard is usually not really an indicator of how you're performing or if you're called to it or not. It's usually an indicator that it's a growth area, or it's something that you need to see in a different perspective. So that's where I'm at. I'm juggling a lot of different things. Like I have like 10 balls. Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, how in the world am I going to juggle all these things? And sometimes I want to eject, because let me just focus on this one thing. And I'm just learning, like God puts what he puts in your hands, and the tension is part of it. My responsibility is obedience and the stewardship of it. So that's my encouragement. So whatever season that you're in, I think that's applicable to whatever season. So if you're in leadership and you're having trouble with your team, that's a tension and a hard that you're navigating, lean into it, because there's an opportunity for growth there that you never would encounter if you just focus on the creative work, And so that's where I'm at. That's what I'm learning currently in this season. And that would be my encouragement. Don't eject too soon.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Man, I think she said it. I don't have to. One of the things that not just young designers, older designers, like in my age, people in the whole spectrum in the graphic design industry, I think we're plagued by just comparison and seeing how people are just crushing it. I mean, I know that's something that I was last season that I was dealing with a lot. And I feel like it's important to understand that what you see online is, we know this is not necessarily real. It's very polished. And even in for us, behind the scenes, we have a lot of challenges. And I say this often. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing 9 times out of 10. It's we're like everyone else, and everyone else is like us. It's like, we're just learning as we go. And it's important to understand that we're all on the same boat. We're all learning together. We're all failing, and we're all learning from these failures and kind of moving forward. And I think I feel like I'm in this whole mental health thing just because of something in the season that I'm in. But I think it's important for us as designers and creatives to give ourselves grace, that we don't have to know everything. We don't have to do everything. We don't have to have all the most followers. That just comes and work on what the things that you love, work on what God has put in your heart, make those things happen. Just put it out, even if it's not perfect, just do it, just get it out. And you just polish it from there. That's what we're doing. I feel like I'm winging it most of the time. I'm just kind of just winging it, and it's just sticking. And I stick to what I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, my season, I named this season of me that I'm going through, that I'm, getting help with some of my mental health struggles, is, No Easy Way Out by I don't know if you've seen the Rocky movies, but Rocky 4, there's a song called No Easy Way Out from like the 80s. And if you listen to the lyrics, it's like, there's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home. You just got to put in the work, right? And that's what I named my season. And that's why I'm encouraging everyone. It's like, there isn't an easy way out. There isn't necessarily a shortcut. You just got to do it. You just got to get out. You just got to put yourself out there, move forward. And if it doesn't work out, then you just pivot to the next thing, So, but the good thing is you have people behind you. You have the Lord behind you. You got your community behind you that supports you, So just keep going.
That's amazing. That's good. And like, I love the fact we've had this conversation, because even a small little outro question like that, you guys just poured out so much wisdom and insight, and also just like vulnerability as well. Like, I'm glad that, like you said, like you have that polished social media exterior that everyone has, because you're even though I think about the dumps, like the carousel dumps that people do on their personal Instagram, like that's taken them like an hour to sort through those photos to choose. Like it's not candid really. It's not like what it's meant to be. But everyone's acting like it is, like, oh, I just selected these photos and just dumped them. It's like, no, you sorted through that for an hour. When you put it into Instagram, you then started dragging them around, making sure they're in like the right spot. Like everyone overthinks this stuff. Everyone overthinks how they present themselves. And I love it. I think just because you said this, Kari, about the kind of language that you use around, your like in the learning and in, well, put it this way. You kind of reminded me of this thing of my sister-in-law said, like, don't call this toddler season terrible twos, call it teachable twos. And that reframing is like now, I guess it's like the words you speak is the house you live in, right? That whole, like, you set yourself up for what you're going to step into. That's and so that's not my quote, by the way. I saw it on Pinterest.
That's good.
I was like,
can you imagine? Man. Yeah, imagine if I came up with that one on my own. That would be good. But that's what I mean. Like, we are all just, like you said, Angel, we're all just figuring it out. And maybe just how we frame our season as we step into it could be just, actually, God's with me. I've got this. I'm going to learn something. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And maybe that's the expectation we should kind of leave with. And I think I'm going to be leaving with that.
Really good, man. In our home, we decided to call it the terrific twos.
Terrific
twos. But I like
twos.
teachable better.
I like teachable. I do like teachable too.
Teachable is more for me when I have to, like, when I'm getting frustrated. I'm like, no, this is a moment. This is a teaching moment for both me and for him, right? Like, it's not just for him. So, yeah,
what's a quick dad hack that I know we're talking about kids now, but a quick dad hack that I've sort of embrace is that these kids, their brains are like literally developing, right? They're growing and stuff. So it's like when they go through these tantrums or when they go through these steep regressions, it's because the brain is like making room or making new pathways and stuff. So that gives me like peace, and that gives me like an insight. I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. You know, that's like the brain is doing stuff. It's doing it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And even like, I know we're getting into the weeds here, but even like these kids are like these little kids, like these 2-year-old boys, they're getting like filled with testosterone because they're like developing as a boy.
Right.
And they want to smash stuff up. And it's like, okay, are they going to smash Hot Wheels up in the living room, or are you going to take them to a park where they can smash a stick? And it's like, you can't stop them from smashing stuff up because they're a boy. But what you can do is you can take them somewhere else to smash something up appropriately. And it's a fun thing. So all of those things saying, no, stop doing that. It's like, okay, well, how can we actually encourage this development, but somewhere else? Yeah, maybe we should do a whole relatable parent podcast.
Yes,
that would be awesome.
What are we learning?
A lot from you.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, I'm learning a lot from you guys.
I would love to learn how you fly with these 2 boys across the Atlantic. 11-hour flight.
Elijah, when we flew with him, he was 6 months old, and he was pretty good. The next flight, he'll be 2, and Isabella is going to be 2 months. So she'll be fine, but he will probably just want to tear around the plane. So we'll see how we go with that.
We can talk offline because we flew with Avon recently, and it was really scary. But yeah,
we'll talk offline. My wife's been doing all the research, so I'll let you know how it goes. But she's the one that's actually carrying this thing. All right. Well, you've been listening to the Church Circle podcast. Thank you, Kari. Thank you, Angel, for joining us and sharing your wisdom. I know this was a little bit of a longer episode, but I wanted to give time for us to get to know you both. And I really appreciate the time that you guys carved out to be here. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, you can leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you can leave a thumbs up and a comment on YouTube. It will be there as well. And share this with someone. Maybe they're in that early parent stage. Maybe they're about to get married and they're going to be going through this in a couple of years. Share it with someone you know. And hopefully they'll find that encouraging, as I have as well. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you both for joining us. And we'll see you guys on another episode of the Church Circle podcast.